What happens when a cocky gym bro mistakes humility for weakness and picks a fight with the one person in the mall who could fold him like origami? We often judge people by their uniforms, their age, or the job they do. We see a janitor and think we know their whole story. But what if that quiet person mopping the floors had lived a life you couldn't even imagine? What if beneath that humble exterior was someone who could teach the hardest lesson without saying a word? Welcome back to Tales of Wonder. If you enjoy stories about karma, unexpected twists, and moments where bullies get exactly what they deserve, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story that'll make you think twice about judging a book by its cover. Now, let's begin today's story. Thomas Mitchell was 72 years old, and every morning at 6 a.m., he arrived at Riverside Mall wearing the same navy blue custodian uniform with his name stitched in faded yellow thread above the breast pocket. His hands were weathered, knuckles slightly swollen from decades of work, and his gray hair was always neatly combed to the side. To anyone passing by, Thomas was invisible, just another face in the background of their shopping experience, someone who existed only to empty trash cans and mop up spilled coffee. But invisibility suited Thomas just fine. He'd worked at the mall for nearly 10 years now, ever since his wife Eleanor passed away. The job kept him moving, kept his mind occupied, and gave him a reason to wake up each morning. The pay wasn't much, but at his age, he didn't need much. His mortgage was paid off, his kids were grown and living their own lives 3 states away, and his pension covered the basics. The custodian job was just something to do, something that made him feel useful. Most people treated Thomas with the casual politeness you'd give any service worker. A nod here, a thank you there, maybe a smile from the regular morning walkers who did laps around the mall before the stores opened. He was fine with that. He'd never been one to seek attention. But then there was Derek. Derek Vaughn was 28 years old and looked like he'd walked straight out of a fitness influencer's Instagram feed. 6'2", approximately 220 pounds of muscle that he'd sculpted through years of aggressive gym sessions and a protein powder budget that could feed a small family. His tank tops were always 2 sizes too small, his snapback always tilted at precisely the right angle, and his sneakers cost more than Thomas made in a week. Derek worked at Iron Temple Fitness on the mall's 2nd floor, and he carried himself like he owned every square foot of the building. His social media presence was his entire identity, flexing videos, supplement promotions, motivational quotes stolen from better people, and an endless stream of gym selfies that his 12,000 followers apparently couldn't get enough of. The problem with Derek wasn't just his ego. Lots of young guys went through a phase where they thought muscles equaled superiority. The problem was that Derek had made it his personal mission to make Thomas's life miserable. It started small. A comment here or there when Derek walked past. Yo, old man, you missed a spot. Or, damn, they got grandpa out here working? That's sad, bro. Thomas would just nod, keep his head down, and continue mopping. He dealt with worse in his life. Words were just noise. But Derek wasn't satisfied with just words. He started filming. One Tuesday morning, as Thomas was emptying a trash can near the food court, Derek pulled out his phone and started recording. Yo, check this out, fam, Derek said to his camera, speaking in that performative voice influencers use when they're trying too hard. This is what happens when you don't invest in your future. 70 years old and still cleaning up after people. Don't let this be you. Hit the gym. Build your empire. Stay hungry. Thomas heard every word but didn't react. He tied up the trash bag, placed it on his cart, and moved to the next can. Derek followed. Ayo, old man, Derek called out, still filming. You ever think about retirement? Or are you going to be mopping floors till you're in a coffin? A few teenagers nearby snickered. Thomas just kept working. Bro's acting like he can't hear me, Derek said to his camera, laughing. Probably deaf too. Old age is brutal, man. This went on for weeks. Derek would spot Thomas during his shift and turn him into content, mocking his age, making jokes about his uniform, pretending to interview him while Thomas silently pushed his cart past. The videos got decent engagement, mostly from Derek's followers who thought this was peak comedy, plus a handful of people in the comments calling Derek out for being a jerk. But Derek just fed off all of it. Engagement was engagement. The mall management was aware of the situation. Several customers had complained, and even some of the store employees had mentioned it to their supervisors. But Derek's gym was a paying tenant, and Thomas never filed a formal complaint. When a mall manager, Patricia, asked him if he wanted to pursue anything, Thomas just shook his head. It's fine, he said quietly. Just a kid blowing off steam. Patricia frowned. Thomas, you don't have to put up with harassment. We can talk to his employer. Really, it's okay. Thomas offered a small smile. I've dealt with worse. And that was true. What Patricia didn't know, what nobody at the mall knew, was that Thomas Mitchell had spent 26 years as a military police officer in the United States Army. He'd served 2 tours overseas, had earned more commendations than he could count, and had trained extensively in hand-to-hand combat. After his military career, he'd continued training in Shotokan karate, earning his black belt at age 49 and eventually reaching 4th Dan by his 60th birthday. He'd taught classes at a local dojo for years, mentoring young students in discipline, respect, and the responsible use of martial arts. But after Eleanor died, Thomas stopped teaching. The dojo held too many memories, her sitting in the back during classes, her proud smile when he demonstrated techniques, her gentle teasing about how he took his karate more seriously than their anniversary. So, he walked away from it all, hung up his GI, let his muscles slowly soften with age. He hadn't thrown a serious punch in over a decade, and Derek Vaughn had absolutely no idea who he was messing with. The situation reached a boiling point on a Saturday afternoon. Saturdays were always the busiest days at Riverside Mall. Families flooded in, teenagers claimed the food court, couples browsed stores hand in hand. Thomas's shift was particularly demanding on weekends. More foot traffic meant more spills, more trash, more work. He didn't mind. It made the day go faster. He was cleaning near the central fountain, a decorative water feature that had become a popular spot for people to sit and check their phones. A young mother with a stroller had accidentally knocked over her smoothie, and the pink liquid was spreading across the tile. Thomas was on his knees with his mop, carefully soaking it up when he heard the familiar voice. Joe, hold up. Derek was speed walking toward him, phone already out and recording. He was with 2 of his gym buddies, carbon copies of him, all muscle and ego in tank tops. Guys, check this out, Derek said, addressing his camera. It's my boy Thomas. Hardest working man in America, right here. Show them what you got, old man. Thomas continued mopping, not looking up. Derek stepped closer, his expensive sneakers almost touching the wet floor. Joe, Thomas, Tommy, Mr. Mitchell, give the people a smile, bro. You're famous on my channel. One of Derek's friends laughed. Dude, he's not even looking at you. Because he's scared, Derek said, his voice taking on a sharper edge. Knows I could snap him like a twig. Thomas paused, just for a second, then continued mopping. Oh, now you're listening, Derek said, energized by the reaction. He looked at his camera. Watch this. He reached out and flicked Thomas's card, sending it rolling a few feet away. Oops. My bad, old man. Better go get that. The young mother with the stroller shot Derek a disgusted look. Are you serious right now? Relax, Karen, Derek said dismissively. Just having fun. Thomas slowly stood up, his knees creaking slightly. He walked to his cart, pulled it back, and resumed cleaning without a word. Derek wasn't done. He'd gotten a taste of a reaction, and like any bully, he wanted more. You know what? I bet this guy can't even do a single push-up. Look at him. Probably hasn't exercised in like 40 years. Leave him alone, man, one of Derek's friends said, looking uncomfortable now. This isn't cool. Nah, this is content, Derek insisted. He stepped directly in front of Thomas, blocking his path. Tell you what, old man, do 10 push-ups right now, and I'll leave you alone forever. Hell, I'll even shout you out on my channel. Give you your 15 minutes of fame. Thomas met Derek's eyes for the first time. His expression was calm, neutral. Please move, he said quietly. I need to finish cleaning. Make me, Derek said, grinning. The crowd around the fountain was growing. People had their phones out. This was about to go viral, one way or another. Thomas took a slow breath. I don't want trouble. Of course you don't. Because you're where? Derek poked Thomas's shoulder. That's what happens when you give up on yourself. When you stop being a man and just become. He gestured dismissively. Whatever this is. Something flickered in Thomas's eyes. Not anger. Not even annoyance. More like resignation. The resignation of a man who tried very hard to avoid this moment, but had finally run out of options. Step aside, Thomas said again. His voice was still quiet, but there was something different in it now. Something that made Derek's friend grab his arm. Yo, Derek, for real, let's just go. Derek shook him off. Nah, man, I'm not scared of. He never got to finish that sentence. Thomas moved. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't some dramatic movie moment with slow motion effects and dramatic music. It was efficient, precise, and so fast that half the people watching didn't even register what happened until it was over. Derek had reached out to poke Thomas's shoulder again, and in that split second, Thomas's hand came up, caught Derek's wrist, twisted it in a way that made Derek's entire body involuntarily rotate. And before Derek could process what was happening, he was face down on the ground with his arm locked behind his back in a textbook Wakigatami joint lock. The whole thing took maybe 2 seconds. Derek's phone clattered to the ground, still recording. His face was pressed against the tile, his expression a mixture of shock, pain, and confusion. He tried to move, tried to push himself up, but the slightest pressure from Thomas sent a shooting pain through his shoulder that made him gasp. "Don't move," Thomas said calmly. "You'll dislocate your shoulder." The crowd was dead silent. Phones were definitely recording now. Derek's friends stood frozen, jaws hanging open. One of them finally stammered, "Dude." What? The Thomas looked up at them. "He's fine. Just needs to calm down." He looked down at Derek. "Are you calm? Get off me." Derek shouted, his voice cracking slightly. Thomas applied the tiniest bit more pressure. Derek yelped, "Are you calm?" Thomas repeated, "Yes, yes." "Okay." Thomas immediately released him and stepped back, putting several feet of distance between them. Derek scrambled to his feet, his face red, his shoulder throbbing. He looked around at the crowd, at all the phones recording, at his friends staring at him as if he'd just been beaten up by someone's grandfather. Which, technically, he had been. You can't." Derek was breathing hard, trying to find the words to salvage this situation. "You assaulted me. I'm gonna sue. You physically blocked my path, invaded my personal space, and made contact first," Thomas said evenly. "All on video." He gestured to the dozens of phones still recording. "I defended myself using the minimal necessary force. No punches, no estriques, just a basic restraint technique." A security guard came running up, radio in hand. "What's going on here?" Derek jumped at the opportunity. "This crazy old man attacked me. I want him arrested." The security guard, Marcus, who'd known Thomas for years, looked at the scene. Looked at Derek, who was 6 inches taller and about 80 pounds heavier than Thomas. Looked at Thomas, who was standing calmly with his hands at his sides. Looked at the crowd of witnesses. "Anyone want to tell me what actually happened?" Marcus asked. The muscly guy was harassing him. The young mother with the stroller said immediately, "He's been doing it for weeks. Today, he blocked his path and put his hands on him first." Multiple people nodded and murmured in agreement. Marcus turned to Derek. "Is that true? I barely touched him. I was just joking around. The gentleman asked you to move. You refused and made physical contact." Thomas's voice was still maddeningly calm. "I simply removed myself from an uncomfortable situation." Derek's face was getting redder. "This is bullshit. Do you know who I am?" "Someone who's about to be escorted out of the mall," Marcus said flatly. "Let's go." "Are you kidding me right now?" "Sir, you can leave voluntarily, or I can call the police, and we can discuss assault charges. Your choice." Derek looked around desperately. His friends had already started backing away, not wanting to be associated with whatever this disaster was becoming. The crowd was openly smirking now, and Derek could see at least 20 people uploading videos in real time. His entire influencer image was crumbling. "This isn't over," Derek said, pointing at Thomas. "You just messed with the wrong guy, old man." Thomas said nothing. Just picked up Derek's phone off the ground and handed it to him. Derek snatched it and stormed off, Marcus, the security guard, following close behind. The crowd slowly dispersed, people murmuring excitedly about what they just witnessed. Several of them stopped to apologize to Thomas, to tell him Derek had it coming, to thank him for not seriously hurting the guy. Thomas just nodded politely, waited for everyone to leave, and then quietly resumed cleaning the spilled smoothie. His hands weren't even shaking. The videos went viral. By Sunday morning, #MallKarateGrandpa was trending on 3 different platforms. The footage had been viewed millions of times, shared countless more, and had spawned dozens of reaction videos, breakdowns, and commentary pieces. Martial arts experts analyzed Thomas's technique, praised his restraint, and pointed out the textbook execution of the joint lock. Derek's previous videos mocking Thomas resurfaced, and the internet did what the internet does best, delivered swift and merciless justice. Derek's follower counts plummeted. His sponsors dropped him. His gym, not wanting to be associated with the scandal, mutually agreed to end his employment. The comment sections on all his social media were brutal. "Imagine getting owned by someone's grandpa. This is why you don't judge people. My man learned humility the hard way. That old man showed more restraint than Derek's ever shown in his life." Derek tried to control the narrative, posting a long video explaining his side of the story, but it only made things worse. He came across as defensive, arrogant, and completely unable to accept responsibility. The video got ratioed so hard he eventually deleted it. Meanwhile, Thomas's life didn't change much at all. He still showed up at 6 a.m. every morning in his navy blue uniform. Still mopped floors, emptied trash cans, and wiped down tables. The difference now was that people recognized him, not in an uncomfortable celebrity way, but in a respectful, appreciative way. Store employees greeted him warmly. Customers thanked him for his service, both as a custodian and as a veteran. Someone had tracked down his military record and shared it online. Parents pointed him out to their kids as an example of humility and quiet strength. The mall management offered him a raise and a promotion to a supervisor position. Thomas politely declined. He liked his routine, but he did accept one change. The local dojo where he used to teach reached out and asked if he'd consider coming back, maybe just one evening a week, to share his knowledge with a new generation of students. Thomas thought about Eleanor, about the memories he'd been avoiding, and realized that maybe it was time to stop running from them. He said yes. On his first night back at the dojo, wearing his slightly dusty GI and his well-earned black belt, he looked at the class of eager students and said, "Martial arts isn't about fighting. It's about discipline, respect, and knowing when not to use what you've learned. The strongest person in any room is the one who doesn't need to prove it." One student raised their hand. "Is it true you took down a bodybuilder with one move?" Thomas smiled slightly. "I prevented an uncomfortable situation from escalating. That's all. But you could have done more, right? Like if you wanted to." Thomas was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "The question isn't what you can do. It's what you should do. And that's a lesson that takes a lifetime to learn." As for Derek, the last anyone heard, he'd moved to a different city, deleted most of his social media, and was supposedly working at a warehouse. Humility, it seemed, had finally found him, whether he wanted it or not. And Thomas? Thomas continued being exactly who he'd always been, a quiet man doing an honest job, treating people with respect, and living proof that you should never, ever judge a book by its cover. Because sometimes the person you underestimate the most is the one who could teach you the most important lesson of your life. 3 months later, Thomas was featured in a local news segment about veterans working in the community. During the interview, the reporter asked him if he had any regrets about the incident with Derek. Thomas thought for a moment, then smiled gently. "Only one," he said. "I wish he'd learned the lesson without the embarrassment. But sometimes, the universe gives us exactly the teacher we need, exactly when we need it. Even if that teacher is a 72-year-old man with a mop." The reporter laughed. "Do you think he learned anything?" Thomas's smile faded slightly, replaced by something more thoughtful. "I hope so. Because the alternative, going through life thinking you're superior to others just because of how you look or how strong you are, that's not strength. That's fragility dressed up as confidence. And fragility always breaks eventually." He paused, then added quietly, "I just hope when it breaks, there's something real underneath. Something worth rebuilding." The camera held on his face for a moment, on that calm, weathered eyes that had seen more than most people could imagine, and you couldn't help but think, this is what real strength looks like. Not muscles, not attitude, not followers or likes or viral moments. Just a quiet man who knew who he was, who treated his work with dignity, and who understood that the most powerful thing you can do is choose restraint when you have every reason not to. And somewhere, in a warehouse in another city, Derek Vaughn's phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had tagged him in the video. He watched it, all of it, and for the first time in his life, he didn't post a response. He just thought. So, here's something to think about. How many people in your own life have you underestimated because of their job, their age, or the way they present themselves? And what might you learn if you actually took the time to see who they really are? If this story made you think twice about judging people by their appearance, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Drop a comment below sharing a time when someone surprised you by being more than they seemed. And definitely subscribe and turn on notifications, because we've got more stories coming that'll challenge the way you see the world. Thanks for watching, and remember, the quietest person in the room might just be the strongest one there. See you in the next video.